Most people don't change their lives not because they don't understand what's wrong, but because understanding feels like progress. They can explain their problems clearly. They know what they should fix. They can name what's holding them back. And still, nothing changes. Because understanding doesn't create movement. Responsibility does. And this is the uncomfortable part no one likes to talk about. The moment responsibility enters the picture, comfort disappears. Excuses lose their power, and your life stops being something that's happening to you. It becomes something you're accountable for. That's why responsibility changes everything, not because it feels good, but because it removes every place you used to hide. Understanding feels productive. You watch videos, you read books, you reflect, you analyze your past, you identify patterns, and all of that matters. But there's a quiet danger here. Because understanding creates the illusion of movement without requiring any risk. You can understand your life perfectly and still avoid changing it. You can explain exactly why you're stuck and remain exactly where you are. Understanding it answers questions. Responsibility answers for outcomes, and those are not the same thing. Most people don't avoid responsibility consciously. They replace it with explanation. They explain their lack of progress with work schedules, with the economy, with family obligations, with burnout, with bad timing. And most of those explanations are real. But here's the problem. Explanation feels like honesty, but it often functions like anesthesia. It dulls urgency. Someone says, "I know I should change jobs, but now isn't the right time." That sentence can be true for years, not because the timing never changes, but because explanation never demands a decision. Explanation lets you stay intelligent and passive at the same time. Responsibility doesn't. Responsibility doesn't ask if your reasons are valid. It asks if you're willing to accept the consequences of waiting. This is where people get confused. Responsibility is not about blame. You may not be at fault for the environment you grew up in, for the opportunities you didn't have, for the things that were taken from you. That's real. But responsibility doesn't ask who caused the problem. It asks who is going to deal with it. If your health is declining, it may not be your fault. But if you keep ignoring it, it becomes your responsibility. If your career stalled because of circumstances, that may not be your fault. But staying stalled indefinitely is a decision made through inaction. Responsibility begins when excuses stop protecting you from consequences. Responsibility feels heavy because it removes psychological escape routes. Once you accept it, you can't pretend you're just waiting things out. You start noticing patterns. How often you delay difficult conversations. How often you postpone decisions you already understand. How often you stay busy to avoid choosing. Responsibility exposes repetition, and repetition is uncomfortable because it doesn't care about intention. It only shows behavior. That's why responsibility feels confronting. It replaces the story you tell yourself with evidence. One of the most common ways people delay responsibility is by attaching it to future conditions. When things calm down, when work gets easier, when I feel more confident, when I'm more prepared. But life doesn't stabilize first. You do. Waiting for conditions to improve before taking responsibility is like waiting for traffic to clear before learning how to drive. Responsibility is not something you earn after things improve. It's what makes improvement possible. If a decision matters, there will never be a perfect moment to make it. Responsibility rarely begins with confidence. It usually begins with resignation. A moment where you stop hoping something external will fix this, where you accept that continuing as you are has a cost you can no longer ignore. That moment might look like finally setting a boundary, committing to a path that limits options, choosing consistency over excitement. It doesn't feel empowering. It feels narrowing, and that's why it works. Taking responsibility does not guarantee success. You can act responsibly and still fail. You can make the right decisions and still face setbacks. Responsibility doesn't promise control. It offers orientation. Even when outcomes are uncertain, direction reduces wasted effort. You stop scattering energy. You stop revisiting the same decisions. You stop negotiating with yourself. Responsibility doesn't remove risk. It removes endless reconsideration. When responsibility enters your life, something subtle shifts. You stop asking, "Is this fair?" and start asking, "Is this aligned with the life I'm choosing?" You say no more often. You disappoint people faster. You waste less time explaining yourself. Not because you become colder, but because clarity replaces negotiation. This isn't motivation, it's simplification. Many people avoid responsibility because it forces trade-offs. You can't pursue every version of yourself. You can't keep every door open. You can't remain flexible forever. Responsibility collapses fantasy into reality, and many people prefer the comfort of possibility over the discomfort of commitment. They don't fail dramatically, they remain undefined, which feels safer, until time makes the choice for them. Time doesn't respond to understanding, it responds to patterns. Responsibility creates patterns, not dramatic ones, daily ones, choosing the same priority even when motivation isn't there. Without responsibility, time passes and nothing compounds. With a responsibility, small decisions accumulate direction. That's why responsibility feels boring. And that's why it works. Avoiding responsibility doesn't keep your options open. It quietly removes them. Health becomes harder to recover. Career paths narrow. Relationships settle into default roles. Not because you chose poorly, but because you didn't choose at all. That's the real cost. A life shaped by momentum, not intention. Responsibility isn't self-improvement, it's self-ownership. It's the moment you stop asking what should have been different and start deciding what will be different now. Not perfectly, not dramatically, but deliberately. What freedom actually costs. Here's the part most people avoid. Responsibility gives direction, but direction isn't freedom. Freedom comes later, and it's expensive because freedom costs comfort, it costs certainty, it costs the ability to blame. Most people say they want freedom, but they don't want to pay for it. In the next video, what freedom actually costs, we'll talk about the price no one mentions. Why freedom isn't about doing whatever you want, but about carrying the weight of your choices without needing permission or validation. Responsibility starts the path, but freedom is where most people turn back. If you've ever said you want freedom but still feel stuck, that video isn't optional. It explains why and what freedom actually demands.